Hello, students. This is Jim Painter again, and gotten so many questions about fasting. I want to take 5 or 10 minutes and just answer some of those questions that I cannot answer in a short little reply. So the first one here, it comes from Verna, and it's about hypothyroidism. Does it really affect hypothyroid? What does it do? Everything affects everything. It just does. Now, does it affect it in a good way or a bad way or a big way or a small way? There isn't a direct connection between hypothyroidism and fasting, but again, it depends on the kind of fasting you're talking about. So hypothyroidism, can you do time-restricted fasting? Well, yes. I mean, really, I shouldn't call that fasting. I should call that normal eating. And what that is that you just shrink the time that you're eating to 8 hours, 6 hours, some people 4. I've talked to some people recently, they're just eating 1 meal a day. And that's very possible and can be very healthy. So when we're talking about hypothyroidism, you really don't want to stress out your adrenals more than they're already stressed. And you might do that by a long fast. So I don't think that that's a great idea. But when we're talking about time-restricted eating, that's a really fine thing for almost everything. And not everything, but in this case it is. So you eat at a less period of time, and it gives your body more time to clean house. It just does. And so you can, help yourself out, giving your body time to relax and clean house by shrinking the amount of time that you eat in a day. Can you do that fasting with hypothyroidism? Certainly. I mean, that's just actually healthy eating is what we're talking about there. And then Michael asked a question on keto diet. How do you do it? Well, my only suggestion for a keto diet is, you've heard this before, students, eat whole foods. You don't want to have, bacon and sausage and cheese and fake protein foods that are highly refined in a bag. You want whole foods. So doing a keto diet, eat plenty of non-starchy vegetables. Atkins, when he started this thing in 1975, what is that? How many years ago is that? He suggested that you have 5 to 10 servings of green leafy vegetables, non-starchy vegetables in a day. So keto diet, my main thought about it is it's just eat whole foods, and it doesn't have to be meat all the time. You can have keto diet with all those green leafy vegetables, non-starchy vegetables, and you can get a lot of good fats in with things like avocados. Avocados should be a good basis for a ketogenic diet. Coconut is great on that diet too. So any of the very highly fatty fruits and vegetables, those are good too. And I say avocado's a fruit, but there's a battle over that. All right, the next question is, Kim asked a question about diabetes, and I couldn't really answer this in one sentence in a blog, so here you go. There's 2 types of diabetes. So if it's type 2 diabetes, your body's too big for the amount of insulin and the ability of your body to function. And so type 2 diabetes is fasting good almost every kind. And I think I've told you this, I had a doctor friend of mine in Chicago, and he would take his diabetic patients, he'd fast them for a month. Now that when you're doing that, you've got to have water and you've got to have electrolytes, and which he did. And so he had a great electrolyte package he had in there, he fed, and they just didn't eat for a month. And so if you're type 2 diabetic, pretty much any kind of fasting, the short-term fasts are great, longer-term fasts can be healthy for you too. Fasting can be done by type 1 diabetics if they do it very carefully. And what I mean by that is, if you're taking insulin and you all of a sudden you stop eating carbs, all of a sudden you can plummet your blood sugar because you're supposed to be taking this much insulin to this much carb, and all of a sudden the carb's not there. So number one, if you start fasting, any long-term fasting, I'm not just talking time-restricted fasting, but fasting a day or more than a day, instantaneously you have to start matching the insulin to that. So you have to do it carefully. Can you do it? Yes. There are studies out there that show that it's extremely beneficial for type 1 diabetics to fast, even to do longer term water fasts. But you have to watch that carefully. And diabetics can go in something called ketoacidosis. Type 2 diabetics can't. It's very difficult for them to even have that happen. But type 1 diabetics can happen. If you run out of insulin, you don't have any insulin anymore, and all of a sudden your blood sugar is going up in ketones, it can become acidic. It just doesn't happen if you're just losing weight and you're producing insulin as you should. So there's a lot of research. If someone has a question about type 1 diabetics, we can send you data on that. And there's a couple of good studies that look at type 1 diabetics in children even, and fasting and things to watch out for. But can you do it? Yes, but you must do it very carefully. And then Melinda asked a question here about blood pressure. There's a lot of things about blood pressure that happen when you fast. First thing that you do when you start losing weight, just because of losing weight, your blood pressure goes down. And so as you lose weight in a fast, it does go down. And one of the things it does is that when you start fasting and your insulin levels come down, insulin then is very interactive with the kidneys in sodium resorption and keeping your sodium levels high. And so when you're taking a lot of high sugary foods and you have a lot of insulin, then that tends to help you hold salt. It can overdo it. And so that interaction can make your blood pressure go up. But the most interesting thing to me is the exciting thing about what happens to your microbiome. We're going to be talking about that. Your bacteria in your intestines change when you stop eating or when you slow down eating. So you're eating all day, you stop eating, you go for a period of time. Even that short period of time, you're not putting things in. You're not putting, especially not putting in sugars and refined carbohydrates. So the bad bacteria that are in there that live on those things, all of a sudden, they don't live as well. And so your microbiome starts to change over to healthier. And when you have those healthier microbes in your intestine, then those tend to create things that will bring your blood sugar and your blood pressure down too. So blood pressure comes down, even with time-restricted fasting. It seems to work really well. So that's a little bit on blood pressure. And then hypothyroidism, we did a little bit. Collagen. Someone asked an off-the-cuff question about collagen. I'll just include it in here briefly. What do you say about collagen? Have I said this before? Eat whole foods. What that means is we eat meat and we shave off every little bit of connective tissue. It might be tough and it's chewy on my teeth. I don't even like it. And so we cut off all that stuff. That's a different kind of protein that's in the muscle. Actually, that kind of protein that builds the connective tissue and the skin and the hair, that's a different kind of protein. And we're peeling off all those. And they're really special proteins. They're really high in a couple of amino acids. They're high in glycine and then hydroxyproline and proline. You don't get those three necessarily in these muscle meats that you eat. So collagen is the kind of protein that's found in connective tissue, skin, and the way we eat today, we just lose it all. So bone broth is a healthy thing to take. My wife used to tell me years ago, she said, I need to eat gelatin because it makes my fingernails healthy. And if I don't eat gelatin, they start cracking and peeling. And I said, oh, that's just an old husband's tale. That's not true because you need a whole protein. You get that in the meat. Well, lo and behold, that's wrong again. And yes, the collagen protein is not a complete protein. It doesn't build the other proteins. But if you don't have enough of it, you can't build the stuff like skin and hair and teeth and bones and all of the tissues that connect the bones together. So that's a quick look at collagen. Eating the whole food, boiling the bones, making bone broth, eating the whole food. If you're eating chicken, you eat the skin on the chicken, and that's where all the fat is anyway. That's where it tastes so good, is all that skin on the chicken. And the same thing with a turkey. Turkeys are really dry. You take all the skin off the turkey, all the fat's gone. It just kind of sticks in your throat. But if you eat the skin and the fat and all that with it, then you get the collagen proteins. So collagen protein is really a wonderful thing. We don't get enough of it. You can supplement with it with different powders that are just collagen protein. And so it works, but you can get it in just the food you eat. Okay, that is a quick overview of some of the questions that you've sent in, and we'll try and do this again sometime soon, but we're going to continue on with some other talks. I think we're going to go to something, maybe weight loss, how to lose weight without dieting. Thanks.